Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Writers Chat. We're so happy to have you with us, whether you're here right now. We have several people that are off camera, but here and we're always happy about that. Or if you're watching the replay, we're glad you've decided to join us too in that way. Our special guest today, who's a very special guest, especially to me, is Bethany Jett. Bethany is an associate literary agent with the C.Y.L.E agency, as well as a multi-award-winning author and a marketing strategist who earned top honors in her master's program, where she earned her MFA in communications, focusing on marketing and PR. Her motto is Teach as You Go, which she lives out as the co-owner of Serious Writer, a company that teaches and empowers writers and authors. She is married to her college sweetheart, and together they're raising three tween sons and their Pomeranian Sadie. And one of those sons is now, as of yesterday, officially an adult. So happy birthday to Jeremy. He's my oldest grandson. It's just amazing to think that can't believe he's 18 years old. And then Morgan Stroh, Melissa's daughter, her birthday's today, and she's also 18. So we've got two new adults in the Serious Writer family. Or Writers Chat family, well, I guess both really. And then I'm also joined, I didn't even introduce myself. I got so excited about introducing Bethany. But let me introduce Brandy Bro, my other co-host, and I'm Johnny Alexander, and we're just very thrilled to have you all here today. So Bethany's here to talk about queries, because that is one skill that we all need to have, whether you're trying to get into, getting an agent, getting into writing articles, getting a publisher for your book. That's kind of like a basis, a foundation. You have to know how to write an effective query. So Bethany, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, Melissa, we're going through the same thing right now with our baby. And I just realized I probably need to update that bio too, because it's they're all teenagers now, because my youngest is 13.
I was thinking that, and I was thinking, I think yeah, but I didn't know like what's considered a tween, so I didn't correct it.
I
So
had to, when he was 12, he was very concerned about being a teenager. And so like I put the tween in there for him. Not that he ever saw it. But just because that was like a life thing for me. So yeah. So hi everybody. I'm kind of looking through the participants list, and it's nice to see a lot of familiar faces in there. And when I was on, was it a few months ago, maybe? And we kind of dived into queries, but we didn't go super in depth with
right.
them. I don't think I showed like a workshop presentation. Did
You did
I?
no, because we were actually on that when Bethany was here before. The last time she was here, she was talking about her writer's journey, but somehow that got morphed into a lot of questions, and a lot of those questions had to do with queries, and people were saying, please come back on and talk just about queries, because that really became a big part of the conversation. So that's what we're doing today. We're having Bethany back to talk about
Okay.
the topic. So
Good.
yeah.
I just want I want to apologize to someone's like, I've seen this before. Like, I'm so sorry. Um, but I could talk about this all day, and I love questions. So I'm going to be looking at slides, but I'm happy to answer questions like in the middle of this.
All right.
So I guess I'll just go ahead and start then.
Yeah, you should be able to access. There you go.
All right. So mastering the art of querying, or mastering the art of the query. I hope really today that I can just give a lot of tips on how to do this. And for the Writers Chat host that just popped offline, please feel free to come back whenever you'd like. So, talk to me.
We will.
All right. Okay. All right. So I know my mom just gave my bio, but my journey started in 2012. Oh man. At the Florida Christian Writers Conference, which many of you have been to, I think. And I took just this basic book proposal and a one sheet that was terrible. You can see it on our website if you search my name in one sheet. I have the example of it there for kind of like what not to do. But I think that the bigger thing is when you're pitching or when you're doing anything, all of these things are tools. There's exceptions to everything. No one is going to look at a one sheet, which is basically your book on one sheet of paper. And no one's going to look at that and be like, this is the worst one sheet ever. I don't want to buy your book. And if they do, that's probably not somebody that you'd like to work with. But what ended up happening is I ended up winning Writer of the Year at that conference, and then my book sold 3 months later. It was just really great timing, and everything kind of launched for me after that. But the next year is when I met Kyle Young, because we were competing in the Blue Ridge Mountains Christian Writer Conference, which I will be at again this year to teach. I'm excited. We both lost to Michelle Medlock Adams, who many of you know. So I took a picture with him just so that in case we were competing again next year, I really wanted to beat him and I'd have like a before and after photo. It's not very nice that that's the reason I took this photo with him, because I didn't know him, but that is why. But he is now my business partner and serious writer, and also he started his own literary agency. I had an agent prior to Kyle. He is, I guess, my agent now, even though I'm not really actively writing. But I have joined his team at his agency as an associate literary agent, which just means that I still have a lot of mentorship with him right now as we go through contracts. And once I'm doing that, like pretty much all on my own, then you just move up to just literary agent. So if you ever see someone that has junior literary agent or associate literary agent, they're just kind of still in a mentorship position, being mentored. So I have the team Jet Setters, which is my group of clients that I absolutely adore. And I've got several books that I've written. I kind of shoved under there. So that is my story, plus a bonus picture of all my books. Sorry about that. So we're going to jump into pitches and queries. So a lot of times these terms can be used interchangeably. But they're really kind of different. Although, like, the more I dug in to try to explain it, I started confusing myself. So this is probably the easiest way that I think to differentiate between pitches and queries. Query is really a bulk of information that includes a pitch, is probably the best way to think about it. It's often in a letter form, and you've got a lot of information, which I'm going to go through because the querying process is really, really important, and it takes a very long time to do it right and to do it well. But a pitch is often what you would see like at a writer's conference when you get a 15-minute pitch appointment. Basically, you're not like having to write a query. You're pitching your project, although you are often still giving a lot of the information that you find in a query letter. It just is a little bit different. You can pitch your work, you can query your work. A query includes a pitch. When you're pitching, you're including information that comes from a query. So there you go. And a one sheet, like I had mentioned earlier, some conferences will let you bring this one sheet of paper that has the book's information. It's the information that you're going to put into your query when you're pitching. And you can Google that, and there's lots of examples for those. There's really no right way to pitch. Like as in one standard. Agents, and I'm just going to use agents and editors interchangeably unless I make a distinction, because in the traditional publishing process, there are publishing houses who have acquisitions editors. So if I say editor, I'm not talking about someone who's actually editing your book. I'm talking about someone who's acquiring books for the publishing house. Some publishers will let you just pitch to them directly. Some of the bigger houses, they require an agent, and the agent pitches on your behalf. So for this process, instead of just saying agent editor all the time, I'm just going to say agent, but I am talking also if you're not using an agent or not looking for an agent, or you're just going to pitch directly to publishers, it all kind of will work the same way. This is my sample formula. I think that this makes it very simple and easy to understand the information that I'm getting. We get a lot of submissions. I literally went through my submissions inbox this week and this weekend, and I have one remaining query that is in there to go through, and I'm just waiting on the author. But there was an agent I saw on Twitter X. I know it's X, but it's Twitter forever for me. And she was saying that she opened, and in like 3 days or less than a week, I think she had over 800 submissions that she had to go through. So she had to close again. So you'll see that agents often will open and close their submissions process, and it's because you get so many. I think back in June was the last time I was officially open, and I opened and I had 200 within the first couple of days, and I had to close right away because I was so overwhelmed. So it's a lot. And so agents are having to make very quick decisions on whether or not this is a project that they can pursue. So you need to get the information to them in the most professional and easy to understand way as possible. So just because I know that we are recording this, I don't typically like to read from my slides if I'm doing like a workshop in person, but for anyone who's listening and you're not looking at the screen, I'm going to go ahead and tell you there's 6 things on here under my sample query formula, and they are the greeting, the optional connection point, the metadata, the actual pitch, your bio, and then a farewell. And we're going to jump into all of these. So mom or anyone, if you've got questions, let me know. I don't see any coming in. So, all right, this is the query example from one of my clients. And I'm going to take each piece separately. And I'm going to read each piece on the part where I go through it so that I'm not just like reading it twice for anyone who's listening to the audio. If you're looking at the picture, it's a very concise query. The query is not a place for you to share your synopsis. You can tease your story here in the query because the goal of this query is to get the agent to look at your pages. Every agent works differently. I saw an agent on Twitter yesterday who was talking about her Twitter process or her query process, not her Twitter process. She said that she looks at the query, but then she doesn't really like read the pitch. She goes straight to the pages and then goes back and looks at the synopsis, which is backwards from the way I do it. So I'm going to just be sharing kind of best practices, but just know that everybody in this industry works differently and everybody has a subjective thoughts that they are putting into this. So just because one person says something doesn't mean that that's going to be the answer across the board, because this can be very discouraging. So all of the elements on the previous screen are in here, and we're just going to go through them one by one, and then for the recording, I'll read those parts out loud. So this is used with permission from my client. And this is the opening. She said, "Dear Bethany Jett, after discovering you on Twitter and learning you're a part of a Christian-friendly agency, I knew I had to query you. As a believer myself, I'm searching out the right agent to represent my secular novels without asking me to compromise my faith-based convictions, and I'm wondering if that's you." So this is her opener. I have interacted at this point. I had interacted with this person on Twitter. So Twitter can be a really great place to actually interact with agents and editors, believe it or not. There's a very active writing community over there. There's a lot of fantasy or spec writers over there that are very active. And there's a huge picture book community over there as well. So there's other writers too, but those are the 2 kind of categories, genres that I see a lot of writers on. So if you're writing in there, that's definitely someplace you'd like to be. But there's lots of agents that give advice or let you ask them questions. They'll do something called an ask agent. So you just want to search for the hashtag ask agent, and then they'll open up and answer questions. So it's always fun to go back and read through some of those. So with this opening, like, she uses my full name, which is fine. It's professional. I don't like when I see "Dear Agent." I'm not necessarily going to say no to the book or to the query, but it's just not personalized, and this takes time. So you don't have to personalize them, but I liked that she did, and I liked this opener. There's a connection point that she's made right away with me, and I knew who she was because we've been interacting on Twitter, so I was excited.
Bethany, just let's pop back to that one just for a minute, because I think one thing that's really cool about the ending of her first paragraph is she says, "I'm wondering if that's you." And I just think that was such a sweet way to phrase that. It has sort of become a joke around the Christian community about people who will say, "God told me you're going to be my agent," or, "God said, you'll publish this book." And that's such a big no-no. And I think everybody on here already does know that. I just didn't know if you wanted to talk a minute about that too or not, but I just love the way she said that. It's not like you're the one, you're it, but just a very friendly, "I'm wondering if that's you." I mean, I just see that as such a sweet way to end that paragraph.
I thought it was nice too. Yeah, I have some do's and don'ts that we're going to go into, and that's
Okay.
definitely one of them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And the thing too, I will tell you that I remember exactly where I was when I read this. I read her query and immediately sat down and read the opening pages that she had sent and like instantly requested her full manuscript. Um this query works really well, and I'm glad that she's given me permission to share. So here's the metadata. So right after her opening, and you will notice I've redacted some things because this is a project that's not been sold yet to a publisher. Once that happens, because I know it will, then I'll be able to like put the information in here, and it'll be super fun to see it, you know, that way. But right now I'm just kind of protecting some of her intellectual property. But the title of the manuscript is an 86,000 word young adult contemporary fantasy. So I just wanted to break this down. When you are querying a manuscript, you want it to be in all caps, not in italics. So we really use italics for the books that are already published. And to differentiate your working title from them, they go in all caps. So if you see people who are querying like over on Twitter, which is typically where I see a lot of this, the working title goes in all caps. Even in the query, you're going to use your working title in all caps. And I have started to shift my proposals with my clients to, I was always doing them in italics before, but now they're all in all caps. And I'll tell you, I learned a lot about the querying process from my clients and from, you know, on being on the agenting side, because I queried at a writers conference. And that's how I found my first agent. Then I met Kyle. And we just talked. And so like I didn't actually query like this, going through someone's they call it the slush pile, but basically going to their inbox. And I didn't realize how much time and energy was going into these queries or how much time these writers were putting into it until I became an agent. So everything I'm sharing with you is really the best practices of that world. So this is that's the title. The word count is super important. It is one of the easiest ways to, how do I say this? One of the easiest ways to make my query inbox reduced is to look for word counts that don't match their genre. Because what it tells me right away is that you probably don't understand what you're writing, and you don't understand the genre, and there's probably too much I'm going to have to teach you, and you might not be ready yet. And so those are ones that I can immediately, I have forms, my form rejections. And though that's one that I can send a form to without feeling like I have to add anything personal to. And like this, your word count is a little outside of what it should be for your genre. Thank you for submitting. So this is very, very important. And you can Google, if you're not sure if your word count is within your genre, then just Google word counts for my genre and look at a few different websites, because things change. I mean, you might find some picture book word counts that are going to say that you can go up to 1,000, except in fiction picture books, 700 for me is really at the top. And there's some editors who don't want over 500. So you have to make sure that you're keeping up with how the word counts are going. Additionally, with nonfiction, a lot of it is moving down where it would have been 55,000 words, 55 to 60,000 words when I got started. My first book, that was the range. I have editors asking me can my clients take it down to 45,000 words? So you really have to make sure that you're up to date with what's going on right now. So that's really important. And then after her word count, she tells me her category, it's young adults. And then she tells me her genre, which is contemporary fantasy. Romantasy has really become a thing since she queried this. We're going through edits, and she's rewriting the story out of third person into first person, and it is just even better than it was when I fell in love with it the first time. So I will be pitching this more as a romantasy because that's what the market is calling for right now. But you know, these are things that can be changed. So it's really important just to understand all of these things. And I would encourage you to have this just boom right at the top. If you're doing a one sheet, have it at the top. If you're pitching, at the top. If you're pitching in person, at the top. Like, this just gives me a good framework for what we're doing. And I know right away if this is even something that I'm going to be interested in. So one of the tips too is always make sure that you're pitching something that the agent takes. You don't want to send them something that they don't. Mom, any other thoughts? I can't see your face, so I feel very I'm like out here by myself.
I know, here I am. I'm here. No, I think that's really great. I was wondering, I was thinking, I wonder what the historical is now, because as you know, I'm my next project is going to be historical, and I'm not sure what the word count is, because it used to be like 100,000, and I think it's probably dropped, but I don't know. So something I need to find out.
All right, I'll go to the next one. All right, so comps and tropes. I could do a whole class on comps. I get very excited about competitive works. You're going to see agents who say they don't care about the competitive works. I am on the complete opposite end of that spectrum. I think it's so important that you understand the books that are selling in your space. So I'm going to read the part of her query. So she went right from the opening to the metadata into her comps and tropes. So here's what she said. Encanto meets Caraval with colorful prose inspired by synesthesia, which I always say wrong. Voice and lore will draw fans of Storm and Fury, and the slow-burning PG BFF to lovers trope may please fans of Casey West and Kiera Cass. It is standalone with series potential. All right, here's why I loved this. This is when I got excited about her query. It was the things that I kind of put in the pink. She first starts off with two comps. This meets this. And on my agent website, where I have my submission guidelines, I also have my MSWL, which stands for Manuscript Wish List. There is an entire website called manuscriptwishlist.com. And so a lot of agents and editors, myself included, have a page there where they go really deep into like what you're looking for as an agent or an editor. We can keep those updated. You can search by keyword. You can search for specific agents or editors. So if you're in the querying process, I would go look. Also, you can kind of see what things are trending too. You might start to see a lot of agents or a lot of editors asking for the same thing. So that can also help, like, okay, I'm on the right track here with what they're looking for. So on mine, I had Caraval listed as one of my like looking for the next. I am looking for the next Caraval. I love that series. And so I got super excited when I saw that. So she was kind of, she really personalized this in a way, I felt. Now, I never asked her if she did that. This could be the one that she sends to everybody. But there were just pieces of it that I thought, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I also have the slow burning on mine, which in romance, slow burn, you know, it's like it takes time for them to find out that they like fall in love, and BFF to lovers trope. I understand that. Kiera Cass is also one of the things on my website where I want the next Kiera Cass. And if you write YA, you're like, I know, I love all those things too. And if you're like, YA is not my thing, then this may mean nothing to you. But that's why it's really important that you understand what's going on in your genre, because she was hitting all the pieces of the YA contemporary fantasy space, which I was looking for. And so she was like, it was like all cylinders were firing. And I was very, very excited about it. The nice thing too in here is that she told me that it's a standalone book, but it has series potential, which is really important, because if it's a standalone only and there's not series potential, if this goes big, there's nothing else to come after it. Also, I know that if this book gets sold, we can let the publisher know, but it can also just be by itself. So there's wiggle room here with what publishers are looking for, which I thought was really, really great. Okay, I'm going to keep going.
Well, we had a question. Is it a good practice to include movies in your comps?
You can. Not in your book proposal, I wouldn't, but like with pitch events, like that I'm going to talk about, or even in here, I knew exactly what she was talking about. So I thought it was fine. And you really only need two in your query letter. Like, this is not a place that you need to be pulling a lot of titles in, because it's going to muddy it up. Your query letter could be really between 300 to 500 words, maybe 450. It doesn't really need to be longer than that. And then even just by mentioning may please fans of Kiera Cass, that's the selection series, which I also had on my website, which I knew immediately. So she pulled me in from like the movie, the book, and a whole nother series by this author. So like she had really tied 3 and 4 with Casey West. So, I mean, she kind of pulled 4 comps into here very, very succinctly and lovely.
Brandy also had and she's on screen, so she had a comment, a go without saying comment that should be said. So Brandy, you want to read that?
Yeah. This author did really great in putting in all of the personal things that you're looking for. But if you're going to do that, make sure that it actually really fits your work, because how disappointing and upsetting it would be if you were to open up the work and find that the story had absolutely nothing to do with these things, and the author just put them in there to get a read from you.
It's probably the quickest way to a rejection, because the opening pages of your story have to feel like what you just told me it was going to be. And I think that's one of the most disheartening things, when you get kind of excited about something and you start to read and you're like, no, no. Yeah.
It's so
Then,
tempting for authors to try to put something in there to hook the agent's interest, but it really doesn't fit the work. And that's, I think, maybe a little bit common with inexperienced writers, and it's just something to really avoid.
yeah, the goal here is, when you're querying, what will set you apart is being as professional as possible and as knowledgeable as possible. Those two things, that's what sets you apart. You don't need to be clever with anything, actually, because that's, everyone's trying to be clever. So like when I find one that's like, okay, they understand their genre, they understand the word count, they're pulling in people in the space that are doing well, and I'm like, okay, like I've got something here. And I feel good too, because I feel like as an agent, I feel like, okay, I really want to partner with my writers. I really see this as a partnership, which means that I'm sure she is still reading in her, I know she is personally, but as I'm thinking through this before I sign her, I'm thinking she's probably still reading in her genre. She's keeping up to date on things. She's doing her part. She's doing her job, which is going to make it so much easier for me to do my job. And all that kind of comes through. It may sound silly. I mean, it's like what, 50 words, 100 words of this query letter, but I have gleaned that from this. So, and like I said, I've been connecting with her on Twitter, and I know how she conducts herself there too, which is always something I go back and look for later, like in the bio, but I don't usually look at that first. So, okay. So her pitch has been redacted because we are getting it ready to go on submission. So like, I so can't wait till I can share it. I love it so much. I cannot wait for this book to be in print. It's so good. So here's what I'm going to share about the pitch. This is where you can tease. So if you're not really sure how to write the pitch, I think it's kind of similar to back cover copy, because when you go to the bookstore, you pick up the book, you turn it around, you're reading the back cover to see if this is going to be a book that you like. It's a little bit different than a pitch. Pitches, you need to condense as short as possible ish. They can be a little paragraph actually in here, because you've got a lot that you need to convey. But this is not the synopsis. And so as for fiction, because this is a fiction query, for fiction, we ask for a synopsis, and in nonfiction, we're asking for chapter breakdowns. The synopsis, you're really going through the entire book, and I'm sure my mom has done a class, or you guys have a class on synopses.
It's probably been a while, and that is a synopsis is very difficult to write, but agents and editors know that. They know it's hard. They know it's not necessarily your best writing, but there's still ways to make it be well done. And I'll just say really, really quick, you hit the highlights. You don't tell the whole story. You really have those plot points, but this isn't where we're going to talk about synopsis.
Yeah.
And do you leave here on a pitch, do you leave the ending unsaid?
Yeah,
in the
you can,
part,
because you want them to go read the pages, and you want them to go look at the synopsis. So the synopsis is a place you tell everything. Like in your synopsis, you do not say you have to read the book. The synopsis is where an editor or an agent is going through and saying, they're looking at the story in 2 pages or less. And so they're looking for the arc, they're looking for the ending. They're kind of seeing how the story is going to read through, without having to have read the whole book at that point. Sometimes when I'm iffy on a project, I do go look at the synopsis to kind of see where the story is going. If someone were to, in the synopsis, say you have to, sign me and then you'll know, that's an instant delete, because you're playing games, and like nobody has time for that, and that's not what you do with a synopsis. So don't do that. But the pitch can have the tease, kind of like a back cover copy would, which is kind of why I equated it to that. So yeah, because the goal of this is to get me to open the pages. A lot of agents don't. Sometimes agents reject on the query alone. So they don't go look at the pages. I always try to look at the first page. But when it gets slammed, like the agent with like 800 that came in a week, I don't know. Like she says I think, no, she's not the same one. Anyway, you never know where an agent's going to say yes or no. And so just do things the right way. That's my plea to everyone. So how to do a pitch. Pitches are really important because I take the pitch that my client gives me once I've signed them, and as I'm working on my own package to send out to the editors at the publishing house, I am also pitching their project. They have pitched to me, and now I am pitching to editors. And I often go back to the pitch that we've worked. Sometimes we'll strengthen it in the proposal, but I'm pretty much taking that pitch that we've solidified in the proposal in my query to the editors. Now, what's interesting is, while I'm so excited because I have my first officially signed contract. She has signed, the publisher has signed, and so I am working on my publisher's marketplace deal today. And so once that's live, then we can announce. But Publishers Marketplace has all the deals that an agent or a publishing house records. So not everyone records the deals that they get here, but I sometimes will spend time. I use Publishers Marketplace a lot as an agent, but I will spend time sometimes coming in here and looking to see how certain books are pitched. What's the language used? Because in all of the Publishers Marketplace deals, they're very concise, the pitch. And so if you're wanting to kind of get better at pitching, this would be a great place to look for them. Although I think it's like $25 a month. So if you're really getting into like, I'm going to go super deep into queries, you may just do it for like a 1 month thing where you go in and then you have access, because you can also, it's so powerful. You can come in here and see which publishers have acquired, what's being acquired right now, which is really important because, when books go on the shelf, I'm going to stop and talk about trends for a second. Is that okay? Can I pause here? We talk about trends.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. So
Part of it.
Now that I spend a lot of time, and I've been agenting for a little over a year and a half, I spend a lot of time here on Publishers Marketplace, which means that when I'm starting to see trends happen, it's because the deals are being posted, not because the books are in the bookstore. So if you're only thinking that a trend happens when you see a book hit the shelves, or a lot of books hit the shelves, you're actually 1.5 to 2 years behind the trend. So that's why they always say don't write to the trend, because by the time you see them on the shelves, we've already cycled through that back on the acquisition side. So if you're like, what's trending now in my space? This would be the place to come look and start scrolling through in your category, in your genre, to see what the publishers are picking up. So, I like to do that. I spend a lot of time in here. Also to see which agents or editors or publishers are actually acquiring those types of books. I don't know. I really love my subscription here. So, but for a querying author, if you get real, sometimes I'll see in the writing community on Twitter, they'll get it for 1 month and then cancel it because they got what they needed, just to get enough research information as they're going deeper into their querying journey. So this could be a really great resource for you. Just remember that not every publisher does this, and a lot of them in the Christian market don't, which I wish they would. I'll leave it at that. So anyway, so I've been on here because now that my first book, which is a cookbook, has sold, I am putting together the description that's going to come here on Publishers Marketplace. And in working with the publisher, she was asking, can I see how you're going to write it up? And I was like, yeah. I said, I'm literally taking it from the description in the contract. And it was interesting because that's how we pitched the book. I went back to the original proposal, and the description in our contract is word for word how the pitch of the book, which is now going to be the Publishers Marketplace description of this book as well. So I thought, wow, like coming into this class today, how important that pitch is. It literally went from query to proposal to contract, and now to the deal announcement, which it's very important to get it right and to get it succinct. So this might be a fun place to look. I'm very, very proud. Cannot wait to like publicly talk about it. And then in the closing, so after the pitch, then you can close it out. A couple things that you want to make sure you tell the agent that it's under consideration with other agencies. When I'm sending out on behalf of my clients, I use the phrase simultaneous submission, which you could also use. Just lets me know that it's, this is not an exclusive. So sometimes there's agents and publishers who they just want the exclusive manuscript, which means you're not allowed to send it to anyone else, and you have to wait until they tell you yes or no before you can. So you have to decide if you want to do that or not with an agent or a publisher. But I'm usually, even if someone doesn't include this in there, I'm kind of going on the mindset that this is being shopped to multiple agents at one time. And then it's just a professional close. Like, thanks for your time, warm regards, and then she put her name. And that was her query, and it was wonderful. And like I said, she hit all the right notes for me, which is what you want to do for whatever agent you're querying. So she had done some research, which takes time. And like I said, I was surprised at how much time actually goes into each of these queries. So I try to respond to every single one because I have a lot of respect for how much time goes into these now.
We do have another question. Do you include pages with the query letter?
So
I think that went back to like, the opening pages of your manuscript with the query letter.
I'm not sure where in the slides I talk about that, so I'll just go ahead and answer it now. It could be the next, I don't know. But so you have to follow the submission guidelines of every agent, and they're all different. So I know that a big request in the writing community when it comes to querying is, why can't there just be one way to send everything in? Because there's not. Everyone asks for a different amount of pages, and so you'll just have to make sure you're following. But yeah, typically you are going to send in pages. Now the amount of pages you send is going to be different. So let me see where we're going into competitive title. So let me just talk about this real quick, and then if it comes up in the slides, I'll mention it again. So I use Query Manager. A lot of agents use Query Manager to handle, it's like their submissions inbox, basically. So like if I get an emailed submission, I just delete it because it's very clear everywhere that I have my stuff that I'm only taking submissions through Query Manager. It's a free site. And for the writer, it's called Query Tracker. And so you can keep track of all kinds of agents, and some editors use it, but mostly agents, of when they open, when they close, the type of, you can just do like a quick search in there and it'll show you every agent who's open to fiction picture books. And then you can kind of sort them, or people can go back and leave notes underneath the agent, like CNR means closed, no response, meaning they never heard back. Lots of things you can do with it. And they have a free and a paid version. So I would say check it out. Query Manager is the agent side. And so in there are there's some fields that in the form that you fill out that are kind of standard to everybody. And then there's options. So on my side, I can choose how many pages I want to see, like whether it's, if I want to see 5 pages of a manuscript, 10, 20, or 50, I think. And I just ask for the first 50 in mine. But what I would recommend is, as you're putting your query package together, have an option for each amount of pages that you could be asked for. So I would have a document with 5 pages. I would have a document of 10. I would have a document of 20, a document of 50, and then I would have the full manuscript ready to go. So no matter which agent you're filling the form out, you can just submit the correct amount of pages right then and there. So it's kind of like do it once and then you've got it done. I'm gonna go kind of fast through comps because we kind of talked about it. Like I said, I love talking about competitive titles. So this is a way that you can see comps pretty easily. I talked about it a lot in the query letter. So the examples I have on here are the purpose-driven life X, which means meets, atomic habits. So if somebody was pitching a book to me and they said it's atomic habits, which is one of my favorite nonfiction titles, meets the purpose-driven life, I have a framework for what kind of book that they're pitching me right away. And then another way you could pitch, you could say it's Downton Abbey, but with dragons. And again, I know exactly what kind of book that you're pitching me here. So especially on pitch parties or pitch events, this is an easy way to, in a small amount of characters, kind of tell what your comps are going to be. If you're going to do a proposal, you need a lot more information like this. So this would be good in a pitch, but it would not work for your competitive works section in a proposal. Maybe we'll come back and I'll do a class on comps. I love them. So, some other things to think about for the comps. Who are the best sellers in your category? But you do not want to just have a list of bestsellers. You also want to have a list of the mid-list authors. And a mid-list author is someone who is not a debut author, so it's not their first book, but they haven't hit that like bestseller or mega bestseller list. They're sort of like in the middle, because publishers know not every book is going to be a bestseller for them. They want some of them, some of the titles they acquire need to have like a long life or a long tail, we call it, to where it's going to sell like over and over and over. They can have this book out for 3, 5, 7 years. The important thing to know is which publishers acquire what you're writing. So with my clients, I want to see a competitive work title from all, at least one of all of the big 5 publishers in there. I don't want to see a lot of self-published books in there, because I'm on the traditional publishing side and I'm showing the competition that they have with the other traditional publishing houses in that. And also too, like one of the questions in my query manager form is what publishers are you hoping would be your dream publisher? It gives me a lot of insight too to what the author is coming in with, because if they say that's your job, that means they probably don't know, and you should know. So if you're like, well, I know the books, but I don't know the publisher, I would suggest go look at the books on your bookshelf in your category and start looking at the different publishers. So there's a lot of imprints, I'm not saying you have to know all of that, but it's really important, because I can't, as an agent, I can't send your book to everyone. I have to compile a list of publishers that are actually taking these types of titles. And I have to know that there's enough publishers taking this type of title that I can be effective and send on your behalf too. If it's too niche, I mean, it may not, this may not be a project I can take on. And then the last tip is look for books within the last 3 to 5 years. If it's a bestseller, sometimes I'll tell my clients, like, let's acknowledge the bestseller, like the elephant in the room. This is the book and it's been out for 20 years, but it continues to hit the top, it's still on the bestseller list. Let's acknowledge it. We'll say, we know that this is the book in this space, but then we give them a lot of other books that have published more recently. And it's really important that you're reading within the last 3 to 5 years, because style changes. So like craft is so important to learn, and a lot of that doesn't change. Like with romance, you still have that meet cute that has to happen very early on. That doesn't change. Whatever genre you're writing, there's certain elements that have to be there for it to be considered that genre. Those don't change, but styles can change. Word count can change. Romantasy, which is like this new big upstart of last, maybe last year and a half. That wasn't really a recognized category. And now I think it was on the Goodreads categories this last year for the Reader's Choice. So like the book that my client pitched, she called it a contemporary fantasy, which is what it was when she pitched it. I'm now going to be pitching it as a romantasy book. And so it's important to know how the market is kind of like moving and how the industry is moving as well. So I didn't see any questions. Okay. So how to find comps. I'm sorry, I'm going as fast. Do I need to go faster? I think we're at 11:45.
I didn't even know what time it is. Just keep at it, sweetie.
Is my clock wrong? Okay. Amazon is a really great place to look. So I have a screenshot of Amazon here. This is where I do some research. So I research in Publishers Marketplace because I'm trying to see what editors are acquiring in a similar space. And sometimes I will look up a past book if I have to kind of see like who was in the deal, how were they pitching, that kind of thing. But Amazon is a really great tool for you because they spend who knows how many hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars in marketing. So we're going to lean into their marketing spend to help us figure out our own comp titles. So as a very brief nutshell how-to, I have a client who the editor, this wasn't one of our comps, but the editor actually said, this reminds me of Don't Let Pigeon Drive the Bus. And like, oh, yes, it does, which just matched the other comps that we had. So I looked up on Amazon, Don't Let Pigeon Drive the Bus. And I scrolled down, and this is kind of what you're seeing on your screen, is the two sections on Amazon that we're going to look at. I like to look at the frequently bought together section because it says this person bought this book, but it also bought these books. So that can be very helpful. These are all in the same series. So this didn't give me another author or another publisher to look at. But this is a very popular, again, I went with the big, one of the bigs in the space. It's a huge series. But so what helped me is when I scroll down right underneath that, you can see products related to this item. So in here, this is where you can start to rabbit trail. So sorry about that. So this is where you can start to find new authors that maybe you didn't know. This is where you could find other publishers. This is where you could find comp titles that you could then dig into to add to your comp list. This is a very awesome section. And so like it's really tiny, but on the far right, above the Angriest Monster book, right above that, it says page 1 of 58. Like there's 58 pages of these books. And so not all of them are going to work for you for what you're looking for, but it can help. And so they're basically, Amazon is paying to show you more books that they hope you're going to buy. And this is just can help you then see like, okay, there are books out there, which is a good thing. If there aren't a lot of books in the category that you're looking for, there could be a reason for that. So it's not always a good thing. Like when someone says there's nothing out there like it, that's more of a red flag to me. It doesn't excite me. It makes me nervous.
Pam made a comment. She said she looked on Amazon first, but when she was looking for comp titles for her chapter book, a series about a boy learning to cook, she had to actually look on publishing house websites because Amazon didn't show very much. But she found some. She said she found tons on their websites.
Okay, good.
So if you don't find something first on Amazon, check out individual publisher websites because you actually may find more there.
Exactly. And so I'm so glad you said that because the next one to look at is the publisher website. So it's super important to know your publisher, check out their new releases, check out their backlist. You want to make sure it's going to be a publishing house that's going to work for what you're writing. They don't all do that. And you know, one of my jobs as an agent is to meet with editors and really build those relationships with editors at publishing houses. And I love when they will do a call with me because then I get to really dig in because you find out more information. And so sometimes there will be books listed on their website, but they're not really acquiring that anymore. And how would you know? And so that's why, you know, sometimes it's really great to have an agent who's looking for those kinds of things too, but this can be a really good help. That's why you kind of want to look at what have they recently acquired, and then what's the upcoming list that's coming out too, just to make sure that, okay, they haven't stopped doing that. Bookstores and libraries are also really great things. The librarians, I'm sure, would love to talk to you about like what is everyone checking out. And I always look at at my library, they have these like the end caps or like the new releases. I'm always going and checking those out. And I'm the weirdo in the bookstore who's always taking pictures of like all the spines because I want to see every publisher. Usually the publisher is on the spine. I'm like obsessed with the publishers that are on the shelves at the bookstore. It's so hard to get bookstore space and shelf space there. So I'm always, you know, I'm obsessed with that. So I have all these like bookstore photos so I can zoom in and look at the publishers at another time. So that might be something that you need to do too. Okay, types of pitching. In person, if you're going to be pitching in person at a conference, everybody knows that you're nervous. Like I was super nervous every time I pitched. So just make sure that you have really good body language to kind of hide the nervousness a little bit. Some things to think about is wherever your knees and toes are pointed is where your attention either is or wants to be. So if you're talking to somebody and they have their toes and knees kind of pointed away from you, they don't want to be in that conversation anymore. So that's just like a body language thing. So when you're in person, just make sure you're kind of like, you've just kind of squared up with the person. Don't have crossed arms because that means people assume that it means that you are unapproachable or kind of closed off. A lot of times it's just like a self-soothing thing where you're just sort of like, it's just a natural way to kind of do like a self-hug. But it comes across as like not being open. So one thing you can do, if you're not sure what to do with your hands, just having an open hand. Oh, you can't see me. So having like an open palm is it's very calming too. And it makes you appear that you're more open and more receptive. So sometimes if I'm nervous, I will think, just lay my hands on my lap, palms up or open my palms. And so sometimes that can even help me relax a little bit too. And it makes me appear more approachable. And then make sure you have eye contact with people. And then if you're pitching at a conference and it's very loud in the room, which is almost always what happens, it's so hard to hear. And sometimes people who are pitching to me are soft speakers, but there's only so close, especially in this post-COVID world, that I'm like, I don't really want to be in their space. So like sometimes I'm like leaning in like this because I can't hear them, but then like I'm too close and then you miss part of the pitch. And so then the focus on my side, I've realized that I'm no longer really able to listen to what they're saying because I can't really hear. And so now I'm like more obsessed about not seeming like a weirdo trying to like get into the, and that's not where you want the person that you're pitching to. You don't want their headspace to be about that. You want them to be able to listen. So just make sure you're projecting. And then, you can always tell if an appointment is going well. If someone sits back and leans away from you, the pitch might not be going so well. So I always say like have more than one thing that you can pitch at one of these appointments. Because if they don't like the first one, you might have like 9 minutes left where you have nothing to say. So have a few things to be able to talk about. I think I saw something come in the chat. Oh, Brandy. It can be hard for those who can't hear loud spaces. Yeah, it is hard. It is hard.
Do you have any recommendations for people that have troubles hearing when there's a really loud environment, how to be able to connect with an agent if you can't really get outside that space?
Yeah, it would, if it's your pitch time and that's your situation, I can't speak for everybody, but I think just saying up front, then you can both shift a little bit. Then I feel like I've been invited into the space that I'm trying not to intrude upon. And then we can hear. So I would just say, can we get a little closer? Because sometimes I have trouble here. And then I know that I need to help project too, because I don't want you to be nervous and I want it to be a good appointment. And so anything that we can kind of like do at the beginning is really helpful if you're comfortable with that.
Good point.
You can always have something written down as well, which also really helps too. And then if you're pitching online, there's a few ways that you can pitch online. So this would be pitching directly to an agent or an editor. And it says pitching online, and I just mean when you're not pitching in person, really. And so this would be sending something to their inbox or their query manager or however they've asked to receive their pitches. Sometimes a contest or workshops with editors or agents will have a pitch opportunity attached to it. That's another reason to get involved over on Twitter. I've been a part of some of them where they've had me come in and do a live workshop. And then this one, she sent me a list of pitches from the attendees. And then I chose up to 5 that I actually wanted to see like a proposal or a submissions package from. And I thought that was lovely. So sometimes you can get personal pitch opportunities with editors and agents. And then pitch events or parties, those happen a lot on Twitter and then also in Discord. A lot of people are kind of moving over to Discord, although I don't think it's as easy over there to do. I have a list. So these are last year's dates, so you always have to check. But if you go on Twitter, PB pitch happened just this last week. So it's all for picture book writers. And there were tons and tons and tons. So you might even be able to go on Twitter and just search hashtag PB pitch, and you might still see some left up from this last event. And here's just several: Joy pitch, Latinx pitch, pitch dis, DV pit, pit black, it's pit BLK, pit dark, which is for hashtag mood pitch is where people create mood boards like in Canva that go along with their pitch. So a lot of these are super fun. I found some clients through pitch events. So they're I don't know, they can be really great. And you can make a lot of connections with people who are also pitching in them too. People are very supportive of each other during these things. And here's the pitch party guidelines. Follow whatever the website is telling you. There's always going to be like a master website of the person or the group who's running it. Whatever they're telling you to do, just do those. Use the hashtags that they offer you, because a lot of times agents will search the name of the thing. So PB pitch, hashtag PB pitch should always be in there, but that's a lot of queries or that's a lot of pitches to look through. So I will even reduce it in my search further, I might do hashtag PB pitch, hashtag NF. So if I'm looking for nonfiction picture books, Twitter's only going to show me the tweets that have both of those hashtags. And so if they give you multiple hashtags for a reason, but it also takes away from your character count that you can use over there as well. But it's really important because when there's a lot of queries happening or a lot of pitches happening during those events, a lot of time the agents are only starting to look, they're genreing down. Is that a made up a word? To be able to see the ones that they're actually looking for. And then a big one for me, if you're doing an online pitch event, create multiple versions if they'll allow it of your pitch, because I can't tell you how many times I saw a pitch and I was super intrigued. And then I went to the person's Twitter profile to find the other pitches they had. And it was the same pitch 3 times, because sometimes they're allowed to pitch 3 times during the day. But it was the same pitch. So I didn't get any clarity. So I didn't request it. Sometimes I've gone and looked and it's 3 different pitches. And so each one of those pitches has given me a little bit more of the puzzle, enough to be able to either say, okay, this isn't really for me, or, oh, I want to see this, which can then garner you a like. So I always think it's a good idea to have multiple versions of your pitch event, and then always submit according to the guidelines. I'm almost done. This is it. A partial, full. A partial is the first 50 pages, and a full just means the full manuscript. For nonfiction, we're looking for the first 2 or 3 chapters, and then but if you see people saying that someone requested a partial, they mean the first 50. I don't know if we have time for do's and don'ts. I can always just skip by this. You let me know.
What time is it? Let me check. Well, why don't you, are we going to have the slides available for the Writers Chat members group? Can we do that?
I can probably download them as a PDF. I need to put them on YouTube, so I can probably get them up and put a link to them.
Okay, so we will be getting a link to them. Why don't we ask people to come ahead and come back on, because I'm sure people would like to hear the do's and don'ts. If you just want to go through it real quick. Well,
oh, you want me to? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think people would want to hear that. So we'll just do them really, really fast. And then if you have questions, please go ahead and come on while Bethany's doing this part, and then you can ask questions.
And I can stay on for a little bit too.
Yeah, great. Great. Okay.
All right. Okay. Include all the things that I said. We're going to get through this really fast.
Yeah.
I said all of these things.
Yes.
Send in batches when you're querying to agents and editors. I wouldn't send to everyone. So if you've identified that there's 50 agents currently looking for your genre, I would not send your query package to all 50. I would send to 5, 8, or 10 of them. And then wait, because if they give you feedback, then you have time to change some things before you send out to the next round of like 10. So that's up to you. If you are writing fiction, you need to have the complete manuscript ready, because the next thing, like, it would have been terrible if I had asked my client to send me the full manuscript, but it's not done. Like, it's an immediate no for me, and I'm like super upset about it because I really wanted to read it. So make sure you've got that ready. Your picture book should already be written, and it should just be what you submit when you're doing that. And for nonfiction, like I said, 2 to 3 chapters, follow submission guidelines. Okay, here's the don'ts. Don't be rude. I have to just say, I'm just going to say that and leave it out there. Don't be rude. My mom already brought this up. Don't say God told me that you were going to be my agent, or God told me you were going to publish this, because that's a turn off immediately. Because, like, what if it's terrible? And like, how am I supposed to say, like, I don't think that God told you that? Like, that's just an awkward conversation. It's better to say, God put this on my heart, and this is why I'm writing this. That is wonderful, because that's inviting. And that's really, I think, what people are trying to say when they're saying that. Don't pitch people in their social media DMs, please. And don't be crazy with your fonts and stuff. And then this is the last thing. A revise and resubmit is called an R&R. This is when an agent comes back and says, so I have some feedback, and if you'd be willing to change these things, I'm inviting you to resubmit. There's not a guarantee with that. So it's a good and bad. I don't really like to give these out very often, because I don't know if I'm going to say yes after you put in all the work to do this revision. You also have to make sure that you agree with the revision that is being asked for, because it is your work. It is not your agent's work, and it is not your editor's work. It is yours. And so you have to make sure that you have an editorial vision together for the project. That's really, really important. But I've had in nonfiction, with my clients that I have sent out, I have had publishers come back and ask for R&Rs. And again, it's no indication that they're going to say yes to the project once we do that. I haven't seen it in fiction yet, but I have seen it with picture books. I've seen it with nonfiction, and I've seen it with picture books, actually. So, and sometimes they're very, very helpful. So that is it. Have patience. It took me 5.5 months to get through my last round of queries for people. There's a thing called nudging, and I will just stop my share here. I have a thing on my website that you don't need to nudge me, because Query Manager will nudge me at 90 days and 120 days on your behalf. So sometimes people will email me after 4 weeks. It's like, I've got queries from June that I still haven't looked at yet. I have not gotten to yours. Like, it's just frustrating. So make sure that if your agent or the agent has a guideline on when to nudge, don't break that, because they're trying to be as upfront as possible about when it's a good time to do that. to do that.
I think that like publishing you need patience, because there's going to be the waiting and the waiting and waiting. And then it's going to be rush, rush, rush. And then wait. So, waiting for answers, waiting for everything. So that's a good one. Okay. Just really quick, because we are at the top of the hour. Holland Webb will be our guest next week. Melissa, do you want to share about him, please?
Yeah, he's going to be joining us to talk about content writing and what that is and how you can use that to earn money as a writer. So yeah, he'll be covering it, how to start the business from the ground up, and getting your first clients and all sorts of fun things. So I'm looking forward to this one. I think it'll be very helpful, especially for authors maybe who are looking for a side income to help. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. And I don't think that's a topic we've had for quite a bit. So that's going to be great. So Bethany, thank you for being here. We probably will go ahead and stop, but stay for the after party if you can, and we can have some question time then. If you're watching the replay, we do invite you to join us live every Tuesday morning. We're here 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. Go around the globe to find your time zone. And also, we urge you to join our Facebook group called Writers Chat Members, or check out our Facebook page, Writers Chat. It has all of our videos, and we do have a ton of them. We've got quite a lot of content over the last several years. So lots of good stuff there. So thank you everybody for being here, and we'll see you next week.